Hi everyone, I'm Evangeline here at etrailer. Today we are taking a look at the Titan Chain diagonal cable tire chains. I'll show you how to get this installed on your 2025 Ram 1500, but we'll also talk about all the different features of these chains and why you might prefer them or what your other options are depending on the weather. Before we get started though, the tire size we have here today is size 275/65 R18. There's a bunch of different tire size for the Ram 1500, so double check your tire size first so that we can make sure that you get the best fit for your truck. Cable chains are an interesting choice for traction when you're driving on the road because they're really small, very low profile, but they do have a special place as tire chains. Lots of times, dealerships actually recommend only using cable chains because then you know for sure that you're gonna get the lowest profile and you're not tearing anything up behind your wheels. Also, some resorts prefer cable chains because they don't tear into the road as much as other larger and heftier chains. The downside though is you don't get as much traction on ice or extremely deep snow as your larger snow tire chains do. So it really depends on where you're going and how much snow or ice you are expecting. But amongst all the different cable chains, I really like these because they really provide a super secure fit to the tire. They come with their own tensioners. These are very low profile, and we just have a really good clearance here on our Ram 1500. These are actually rollers that are wrapped around a steel cable. The rollers are made of an alloy steel, so compared to some other cable chains that just use a low carbon steel, these are going to be a little bit more corrosion resistant. I still recommend really watching them and making sure that everything still is good. If you're expecting this to last for more than a couple seasons, you really want to be careful, especially since rollers are a little bit more prone to potentially breaking when come in contact with ice or some rocks on the road. But they're still really good for traction because that rolling design does prevent clumping of snow as you drive around while still having those edges to break into the surface of, let's say, the snowy road. Now with this being a very low profile, what that means is this is rated Class S in the Class SAE. And for vehicles that had limited clearance behind your wheels, maybe have like brake lines or things like that in the way, this is a type of chain that is recommended for those situations. So it's nice to know that on your Ram 1500, you have something that sits really close to your tire. And what's really pulling everything into place is the included tensioner. And you can see how nice of a fit we have around our tire. This is something that makes me feel a lot more comfortable when driving around. Now, if you do have a bit more ice though, and really thick snow, you can see that this diagonal pattern exposes a good amount of tread still. So you may want something that covers more of your tire and has a bit more of clearance or space it takes up for those situations when you'll need it. So this will be mainly your tires with a little bit of extra traction aid. Your tire chains are going to arrive as a set of two, one for the driver's side, one for the passenger side. Now, I installed the chains on our rear tire, pretty common for trucks because of their drive. Now, double check your owner's manual though, just to see where your manual recommends you install tire chains. On that note, when some vehicles say that they don't recommend the use of traction aid or tire chains, that's mainly because they do have limited clearance. But sometimes you're going through an area that requires you to bring along or have tire chains. If that is the case, that's when cable tire chains like these are going to be your best bet. With that, when you are going through locations that require you to have them with you, this is going to be the bag that your chains arrive in. I have mixed feelings about this bag. I like how easy it is to lug around and throw into the cab. It's very compact, it's very lightweight, It's the putting the chains back into the bag that takes a little bit more work. Now this is not the smallest bag, so it's not the worst that I've seen, but sometimes if you find that you struggle too much with storing your chains, what other people do is they get a large plastic tote, fill that with lubricant, and then when their chains are dried off, they just put the chains in that tote, and that's how they store it during the off season. So that could be an option for you. I've tried a couple different cable style tire chains on our Ram 1500 here today, and of the different ones, I actually really like this one. My favorite thing about it is just how cinched in everything is, especially since it has its own rubber tensioner. So if, let's say, your dealership says that you're required to use cable chains if you use any chains at all, and you're looking for the best option there, this might be the one for you. Now, if you need a little bit more traction though, and maybe you need a heftier tire chain, my next recommendation would be the Titan Chain Diamond Alloy Snow Tire Chains. That's going to be a slightly larger square link chain. It's super easy to install, one of my favorites no matter what vehicle, and you don't need a rubber tensioner because it has its own too. That's something worth looking into. Check it out here on our website, but that one isn't as low profile and as sleek as our Titan Chain Diagonal Alloy chains, which we have here. Now for the installation process, as long as you know how to do it, it can be pretty simple. So let's go take a look at how I got these chains on our truck. What I actually recommend doing is pretty much the moment your tire chains arrive, you could just lay them out on your garage floor, and that will be a perfect time to just look at the chains, double check, make sure there's no rust spots, things like that. Also, that way you can get familiar with the process of installing your chains before you're stranded by the side of the road. Now, some things to look out for too is just making sure you have it oriented the right way. You want the part that opens up in a spot where you could slide it around your tire. You want to look for the side where it says tire side, because that's what's going to be facing your tire and not the hooks. You want those hooks away from your tire. So when everything looks good, like it does right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhook that center piece. I'm then going to grab the chain and I'm going to bring it around our tire here and just grab it from the other end. This could be a bit of a tricky move, especially if there's already snow on the ground. So there may be a little bit of crawling around required. Hopefully not much, but it does happen sometimes. I'm just going to grab this end here, bringing that around, and now we can make our first connections. We're going to first grab the back cables. Notice how I have my thumbs just holding on to them and also what they look like. So for these back cables, you're going to have a hook and a link. They secure like that. You're going to leave that behind the tire as you go over to the front, and then you connect those pieces. So it's just going to be another cable that fits into this anchor. You're then going to want to just continually just pull at these chains, making sure everything is properly settled around the tire so that you can secure the bottom piece. That's going to be this other cable that fits right in there. The final step is to install your rubber tensioner. Now this tensioner is included with the kit, which is very helpful because not all tire chains have something like this included. I usually have to recommend them for other people that are installing tire chains. And I always recommend them because they are really helpful for just adding all that tension in. You can see I am having to pull a bit because we do have a larger tire, but I think it's worth it because as you are driving around and you hit rocks or you hit ice, your chains potentially might shift around on your tire, but the perks of a rubber tensioner is that it will shift with you. So that's exactly how your tire chain is going to look like with this all installed. What I then recommend you doing is just go ahead and do that on the other side. If you are installing this out in the snow, you can then drive forward or back a couple feet just to make sure that everything is still in place before you go off and hit the road. If everything looks good, then that's going to be about it for your installation of your tire chains on your Ram 1500.